All right, it's Locked On NFL on a Friday, and the combine has started. Luke, Braun, and I have some questions and some answers. We'll get right to it on this edition of Locked On NFL.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Friday. Welcome to another edition of Locked On NFL. We are the hosts of the Locked On NFL podcast on a Friday. Tony Wiggins, the usual, and Luke Braun, the not so usual, hanging out with me today. But shout out to David Harrison, who is up at the combine running around. So Luke is going to help me with today's show, and we're going to get right to it. We are free to subscribe to on our YouTube page. Make sure you tap into the YouTube page that is Locked On NFL. Hit the like button, subscribe button, and then hit the bell so you receive notifications each and every time we drop an episode. And then wherever you get your audio podcast, make sure you tap into that location so you won't miss. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com locked on to get started. And we'd like to thank the everydayers for joining us every day. And you can be an everydayer too if you join us every day. That's the most anybody has ever said the word every day in a long time, right? Luke Braun, host of Locked On NFL as well as Locked On Vikings. And I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of Locked On NFL as well as Locked On Jaguars. Luke, what's going on, man? I don't think we've done this before. We did some crossovers, but this is the first time that we got down on this.
Yeah, first time we've crossed paths on Locked On NFL, although I usually will would lead into you when you were on Wednesdays, so I'd always be able to tease whatever you guys were talking about. It's combine time, though.
It is, man. A lot of people making some money.
Or losing money.
Yeah, I saw a couple of guys lose some money, but that was before they ran. I think some guys lost some money when they got on the scale, but that's a whole nother story. So what we're going to do today, we're going to go NFL Combine winners and losers in the first segment. Segment number 2, who is the prize at edge? Who resets the free agent edge market? Both of us have some inside information on this because Luke covers the Neil Hunter. Well, he used to cover the Neil Hunter, I think. And I covered Josh Allen, who is probably going to get franchise tag. We're going to see which one of those guys is going to reset the market and who deserves it. I think you'll be surprised by my answer. And then teams in the best spot to improve, like teams that have draft capital plus coaching situation, their roster. We have different answers. We already know what they are, so I think I might surprise you with my answer for that as well. But up to the top, man, let's not bury the lead. Luke, the NFL Combine winners and losers in your opinion.
I mean, the big ones are Chop Robinson, is it Braden Fisk and Dallas Turner? These guys are blowing things up in the D-line portion. I think we all kind of saw this coming from Chop Robinson. Everybody saw that he's this like crazy athlete. And the question is more about how many of the nuances of technique you can see. I'm a huge fan of Chop. And I think people are missing a lot with him, but the athleticism was never going to be in question. So you knew he was going to blow things up, but still he's running, sub 4.5 in the 40. He's got 10.8 on the broad jump. Those are insane numbers. I mean, these are wide receiver numbers at that size. And Fisk is another one who's really, really blowing it up. He's putting up Aaron Donald numbers as a defensive tackle. Insane athleticism. And then you have Dallas Turner, who actually beat the Chop Robinson 40. And I believe so Chop set the record for the fastest 10 split for anyone over 250 pounds. I think Dallas Turner might be challenging that, but I don't remember if he was over 250 pounds or not. Let me double check on that. But we got records going on, man.
242.
242. Okay. So it still goes to Chop, but we got records getting set here. We got some crazy talented edge rushers, and those are premier guys, those pass rushing specialists. I mean, shoot, Jags just took 1 overall a couple years ago.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I was coming in here thinking, okay, is this really going to change? I asked myself this year, is this really going to change boards? is this really going to make people realize that maybe we were wrong? What I always do is when I look at a guy's athleticism, now I'll go back and I'll see, did I see that on tape? Sometimes I already know that. Like Peyton Wilson ran a 4.44. I knew he was going to be fast. Edgerrin Cooper ran a 4.52. I knew he was going to be fast. Chop Robinson did not surprise me. The thing with Chop is I wanted to make sure he was close to 6'3", and I wanted to make sure he wasn't one of those guys that was 6'1", because I had heard a lot of comparisons to Hassan Reddick, who is 6'1", about 237. Chop Robinson is almost 20 pounds bigger, and he's legit almost 2 inches taller, 1.158. So I do think he answers a lot of questions. The key for me is it's always about what do these teams, what do the players get when they go to the teams, not what the teams get when they draft the players. And the reason why I say that is I may be in the minority with this, but I heard this somewhere. I heard that bad teams ruin good players way more than bad players ruin good teams.
I think that.
Yep.
I've spoken to people who've been in the league for a long time that would agree pretty hard with you.
Yeah, you hear guys like Louis Riddick all the time talk about what program are you bringing them into. And I think everyone thinks that since the league is such a monolithic league when it comes to uniforms and the music that's played in the stadiums, and I mean, you're going to hear Turn Down for What, and you're going to hear, you're going to hear Eminem, at a key moment, he's going to start talking and lose yourself. And everybody isn't the same. And we saw that with the report cards, right? Every organization isn't the same. If your organization is traditionally a dumpster fire, that means that it might not matter who you pick in the draft. It's not going to turn out real well. So hopefully a lot of these guys can get lined up and the league starts to do a better job and teams start doing a better job of actually getting guys that fit what they do. And I think the more you look at the teams that are winning a lot, that's exactly what they're doing. One guy I think did not win today. I don't like pointing out negatives because there's been this debate of whether when you do this, you should talk about negatives and positives. I go by Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick. I just want to know what a guy does well. I don't want to know what he can't do because I'm not going to ask him to do what he can't do. So tell me what he does well, and I'll see if he can help us. Darius Robinson, though, who some people thought might push up into the top 10, ran like a 5 flat 40. That's not going to cut it. Even if you're 296 pounds, that means that everyone was expecting this Trayvon Walker type deal to happen with him, and it didn't. So that just goes to show you everybody that looks like Trayvon Walker is not Trayvon Walker.
Yeah, the way I like to handle that kind of thing, if you're a big Darius Robinson guy and you're like, oh no, I sung his praises and now he's going to fall. Here's the deal. When it comes to this testing, I think these tests can raise a question, but they can't answer the question. If you have a bad, if you got short arms or you run a bad 3-cone or something, or you have a bad 40 time, it raises the question, okay, is this guy explosive? Jared Verse, I think he's somebody that actually really made some money by having good explosion scores because he does not have an explosive get off. When he gets off the ball, he does not get off the ball with authority. Sometimes that's part of the defense and he's playing a contained thing or he's trying to read before he goes. And that's part of what he's coached to do. But sometimes he just isn't getting explosively off the ball. And the question is, okay, is that a stance thing? Is that a reflexes thing? Or is it just God-given athleticism? He just doesn't have the power to get off the ball explosively. If it's the latter, that means you can't teach that, right? You can't coach that out. So we can raise this question, right? And so he gets good explosion. So now we can raise the question. All right, he has a good explosion score, but he doesn't get the get off. What's up with that? You can't answer the question with athleticism, but you can at least, it can point you the direction, right? Of what question you're supposed to ask. And with Jared Verse, I think it's stance personally. I think if the way that Florida State coached his stance was just not the best for him. And if he gets into the NFL, you change the way he lines up and the way he gets off, you might have a more explosive player than you even think you have. That's what the athleticism can kind of point you in that direction. So with somebody like Darius Robinson, if he's a little slower than you thought, you go, okay, is he too slow to play on the defensive line? You got to go to the tape to answer that question, but at least you know what you're asking.
You're right. And I follow Florida State. He did a lot of 4-point stances. And he's a power player, though. And I think he's a power player
for sure
who has a little bit of speed, especially, and he doesn't quit. So I do think he'll be fine. But I get your point. The point is if you're in the top 15, if you're in the top 15, to your credit, when you see Nick Bosa, one of his legs are way back there somewhere, like he's running track.
Right. That's what I want to see. Yeah.
Right. When you see Verse, both of his legs are underneath his shoulders, the way he lines up. So you're right when it comes to that. The other thing is what's teachable, what's not teachable, because eventually they have to get to the NFL. You don't want to take a number 2 rusher in the top 15. That's just not what you don't want to do that. You want to get a number 2 rusher the way Kansas City sat there and got George Karlaftis. That's what you want. Right. So we'll have time to discuss that and dissect that more as we get on with the preseason. But right now, we're going to look forward to the NFL. Luke and I both cover 2 teams, with the Vikings and the Jaguars. I think they both have the premium edge rushers that are on the market. We're going to say who's going to be the one to reset the market. We'll do all of that in segment number 2 here on Locked On NFL. Let me tell you about FanDuel, man. FanDuel football did not end FanDuel. That's right. FanDuel's still moving on. I know you're used to field goals and all of that stuff, but right now you need to focus on buckets, because you can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. I'll say it again. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. And rolling along here, segment 2, Locked On NFL on a Friday with Luke Braun and Tony Wiggins. All right, edge rushers, free agency. We talked about the draft. We'll get back to that segment 3. Free agency, the draft. Edge rushers are going to be the premium. Quarterbacks that we all love don't usually become free agents. Left tackles don't become free agents. Every now and then you get 2 premium pass rushers, guys that are known for getting double-digit sacks, and that is the case with Jacksonville Jaguars' Josh Allen and Danielle Hunter. I'm going to go first because I'm going to let you eat this up, all right? I actually believe Danielle Hunter is the guy that needs to reset the market. And that, to me, before this year, Josh Allen didn't get double-digit sacks since he was a rookie. So he's been in the league 5 years. Year 2, 3, and 4, he never got more than 8. I think Danielle Hunter, even though he had a few injury problems, has been way more consistent, and you know exactly what it is. And then I just think he's a better natural pass rusher. Albeit about 3 years older, I still think Danielle Hunter is the guy that needs to set the market in free agency.
Well, he'll have to be, because it doesn't sound like Josh Allen's going to be in free agency if he gets franchise tag, right? And it might be that Danielle Hunter sets the market if the Vikings indeed let him walk. The winds feel like they're blowing that way, but nothing has even been approached yet. They haven't even started that process. They're figuring out what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins first, which is going to have a lot to do with the conversations that his agent has at the combine, allegedly. But then that will kind of ripple down to all the other contracts, and the rest of the offseason plan can go one of 2 ways depending on what happens with Kirk. But assuming Danielle Hunter does hit the market, and assuming that Josh Allen and Brian Burns do not, Danielle Hunter is going to be the big name that gets all the money. And good for him. He has been horribly underpaid for 9 years. Yes. He signed a deal that he regrets in 2018. He was, I think, 23 years old when he signed that deal. It woefully underpaid him, and he didn't really have the business sense to understand why that was a bad idea. And it gave the Vikings 6 years of team control because it was an extension on top of what was left of his rookie contract. So he got locked into a bad contract for him, and he decided to try to negotiate that right around the same time he got a neck injury that knocked him out for a season. And then the next season, he got a pec injury that knocked him out, totally unrelated. So he had those issues. But the last 2 years, 10.5 sacks, 16.5 sacks. He's been a double-digit guy. He's been the lead player for the Vikings, been the most important player on the Vikings for 2 years. I don't know if the Vikings see it that way and agree with me, but if you're getting Danielle Hunter on your team, you're getting a guy that your defense can build itself around. I think that he's the guy that resets the market. I don't know a lot about Josh Allen, so you're going to have to tell me about Josh Allen. If he did hit the market, do you think he would get a bigger deal than Danielle Hunter if they were both there? which would teams be clamoring more for?
I think Danielle Hunter's a better player. I think Josh could turn his age, the fact that he's 26.
Mm-hmm.
I think he could turn that into a bigger contract. Somebody told me a long time ago, man, don't pay attention to nothing but the guaranteed money. So I asked a former GM in the league once, I said, about that, is it all ego? Do these guys just want to say, well, I signed for $198 million, knowing that they're only getting 50 of it or whatever? He was like,
right.
Well, no,
the agent gets the shift or tweet.
Right. So it's like, no, he said, here's what happens. Generally, it's not necessarily a rule, but it's almost kind of a rule that whatever the total number is, that a certain percentage of that number is going to be guaranteed. So they're not just shooting for the higher number just for have bragging rights. They're shooting for the higher number because whatever that number is, let's just say it's 62.5%, right? So if you go 100 million, 62.5 is guaranteed, right? Mm-hmm. That's just, that's not fact. That is just the number that I'm using just for this exercise. That's why they go for the bigger number, because they're shooting to get more guaranteed money. So, and the teams don't mind them doing that, because with the additional void years and the fact that they can amortize stuff and spread it out over the life of the contract, even if the guy's not there anymore, they don't care. You can put as many years on it as you want to. But sometimes also players want to force the hand of a team. So if you sign a 5-year deal and the 4th year of the deal, you got a cap figure of like 50 million. They know the teams aren't going to want to play on that. But if you've played so well up to that point, you get to leverage them. You're going to turn some of that into instant cash, or you're going to have to release me and you're going to set me free, and I'm going to have to go out here. Steve McNair, remember he got set free? He got set free back in the day and ended up going to Baltimore because he wasn't going to negotiate. The late, great Steve McNair, he was not going to negotiate that last year of that deal. It was like $30 million or something like that. Well, no, set me free. I want to get out of here. So that's the way it works, and that's why teams do this. But I think Josh, I don't think he's as good. Josh is a good player, but there are too many times during the game, critical junctures of the game, you go, okay, let's go 41 or whoever, and nothing happens. And you're like, see, if that's Bosa or Myles Garrett or TJ Watt, I know that corner's going to be turned. Danielle Hunter is that guy to me too. I know that corner's going to be turned, and I know it's going to be a problem. So to me, sometimes Josh doesn't show up and do that. And there could be a little bit of, well, he did it in the contract year. So with that being said, I would not be shocked if both of them, I don't think Josh is going to hit the market. The Jaguars are going to tag him. I'm just wondering if the Jaguars give him what the Chiefs gave Tyreek and what you're hearing they may give L'Jarius Sneed. All right, so since we're far away on this number, you tag, but you can seek a trade. I wonder if that's going to happen. And maybe it'll happen if they know that they can get Danielle Hunter. And the reason why I brought those two up today is because Danielle Hunter's name has been mentioned to Jacksonville for like 2 straight years now. And I think somebody's in love with him over there, and they're going to do everything they can to get him maybe.
It's funny. Jacksonville to me has always had the reputation as the team that's going to go get the big time, the Olivier Vernon kind of guy on the market, the big edge rusher. It's interesting with Danielle in that, when the game's on the line, who shows up kind of deal. So when Zimmer was in Minnesota, he would have Danielle Hunter line up in the same place all game long. He'd line up usually on the left side. He'd go up against the right tackle all day long. Same place every single play. And what that meant is that Danielle Hunter could kind of set himself up. He would win with speed a lot. And he would set himself up with, he would go speed. Every third down would be a speed rush until the tackle. The best example I can think of this is 2019 in the playoffs against the Saints, is Ryan Ramczyk, who had not given up a sack all season long. And then we're in the playoffs. He ran at him speed every single time until a crucial third down. I think he set it up with a spin move. So a speed release and then spin back inside, gets a strip sack in a key moment of the game. Vikings end up forcing overtime and winning. And it's like very clearly like there's a situational awareness there. It wasn't just, you happen to have, you rose to the occasion, you responded to the pressure. No, he deliberately chose to break out that move at a moment where he knew it mattered. And that was a little bit less so with the last couple defensive coordinators that the Vikings have had, who try to move these guys around a little bit more and create more confusion with the fronts, which sure has its own pros, but you can't really get away with that stuff as much. And it's not like that like Danielle Hunter has disappeared or anything. Again, still double-digit sacks every year. But yeah, we'll have to see exactly where he ends up, but it's going to be somewhere that can pony up, and hopefully it's somewhere that he can really find some of the success, the team level success that Minnesota has not been able to provide him. But I'm not ruling out a return to Minnesota. Daniil Hunter has said he wants to return. He's happy to do it, but he understands it's a business and all that. Who knows? Maybe they get something done at the 11th hour.
Maybe they do, but teams really have to. It's weird. You have to do the combine and the Senior Bowl. Then you got to skip all of that, do free agency, and then you got to come back to the draft. So it's almost as if like you get a look ahead to the future, but then now what you have to do before you address the draft, you actually have to figure out what you're going to do in free agency. And it's a look to say, okay, we can't get that here. So we might, it's like you don't want to go to two stores. Well, I'm not getting this at this store. I'm going to get there. But then you get to the other store and it ain't there. You got to come back. Well, you can't come back. So that's the thing. These teams really have to figure out exactly what they're going to do. And that's what we're going to talk about in segment 3. The teams that are in the best spot, whether it be cap-wise, whether it be players, whether it be draft picks, who is in the best spot before we hit free agency and actual where guys can actually procure some talent. But first, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available in the free Fire TV channels app. Segment number 3 here on Locked On NFL in just a second. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by BetterHelp. Look, man, I have gone through pain management, injuries, death in the family, and therapy has helped me. Now the thing that I'm really, really concentrating on is how do I have enough time to do all of the things I need to do for myself and my family, and then have some time to also do the things that I need to do for me and myself. Well, therapy can also help you with time management and how to better use your time. And BetterHelp is there for me, and it can be there for you. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, we're going to wrap it up here on Locked On NFL with our third and final segment. Luke Braun, Tony Wiggins, thanking you for making us your team every day and your first listen. Teams in the best spot to improve based on all of the things that we've seen, go for it.
I think I have to give you the boring answer, which is the team that goes first, right? Chicago Bears, they got the first and the 9th pick. They have a chance, I think, to right their wrong, which, I mean, it wasn't Ryan Poles that started the Justin Fields experiment so poorly the way Ryan Pace did. But they really, they brought Justin Fields in, who was a prospect who has some stuff in common with Caleb Williams, not all of it. I'm assuming Caleb Williams is going to be the guy in Chicago, and that they trade Justin Fields away. They get draft picks there. They still have the 9th overall pick to give Caleb Williams some better surroundings. Williams has, a DJ Moore to throw to. He has an outlet guy. Hopefully they can get a better O-line around him. And really that was the mistake of the Bears, that they surrounded Justin Fields with such a catastrophically bad offense under Matt Nagy that Fields had to rely on the only thing he could do to make that offense move, which was his run around, his playmaking, all that crazy cool stuff that he does. But he never got a chance to really get comfortable in an offense doing the easy stuff, right? Just the little stick plays and setting protections and the stuff that we usually take for granted sitting at home. Everything had to be 100% hard mode. Every single play had to be either the most incredible play you've ever seen, or it's a sack or a throwaway or something. It was all so hard. And he just leaned so far into those habits that when it came time to, do or die in the fourth quarter and a whole bunch of games for the Bears here, he just came up short, and now they're moving on. We've seen a lot of teams have the number 1 overall pick and not take the number 1 quarterback that's supposed to be the guy.
Right.
We've seen that happen a lot. The Bears are moving on as much as they're moving into Caleb Williams, but that gives them a chance to do this right now and give Caleb Williams a little bit more easy mode. Don't make him be the hero that he had to be at USC all the time. Let him be a little bit of just a regular old game manager sometimes, and maybe you can have the guy that you thought Justin Fields would be. Plus, you've got a lot of capital to surround him. What do you think, though?
Well, let me piggyback. I said baby back. I'm thinking about food. Let me.
Tony's hungry.
I know it, right? Let me piggyback on your thought. Some folks are saying, man, they're going to give up on him too quickly. Okay, let me tell you about football. And when you're in a building with somebody every day, I think 2 years you'll know. Either is or he's not. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be bad or a bad player. You might not have to recognize what he isn't, but you just know what he is. And to you, being around him every day, if you have to think about it, then it's not it. That's the way I feel about it. I think of all the great quarterbacks, you kind of look at them and go, we got him. You know what I'm saying? So I do think sometimes you need to switch things up. And you have to just evaluate it you have to look at it if you're the Bears. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. We got a pretty good player at quarterback, but we think that's going to be a great player. So that being said, I don't trust them from an organizational standpoint. I think the Arizona Cardinals are in a great spot. They got over $50 million in cap space. They actually have a quarterback, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, whether you agree with it, they have a quarterback, right? They have Monty Ossenfort, who I believe, I heard this 2 years ago, by the way, that this dude, when he was still, I think he was with Tennessee, somebody said, Monty. I said, Monty who? Ossenfort. There was a former GM that told me that. He said he's going to be a star. Because I was talking to Ed Dodds. No, the guy's Monty Ossenfort. It's Monty Ossenfort. So with that being said, I look up with $50 million in cap space. You do not need a quarterback. Everyone said that they were a hard out last year. How many times you heard that? Like when a team is not very good, but other coaches look at them like that is not a walk in the park. I think everybody learned it. I think Detroit learned it, and a couple of other teams probably learned it. That
they stole a couple from the Eagles and Cowboys.
Yeah, right. So my thing is that's not an easy game, and I think they went to overtime with like the Chiefs or something. It was like ridiculous. So here's what they have: all of that cap space. They don't need a quarterback, right? They're really not desperate for anything. They got pick 4. Pick 27 from Houston in the trade that they made last year. That's not it, though. This is what impresses me. They got 35, 66, 71, and 90. To me, this draft is so deep. I said on my podcast with the Jaguars that if the Jaguars left and went from 17 and went down to the end of the first round, you always want to stay in the first round because you keep that fifth-year option. If they could get 2 more picks between 35 and 60, that they'll be fine. And I'm looking up now, they have outside of 4 and 27, they got 35, 66, and 71. So let's just say the way we saw the draft today, they could conceivably get Marvin Harrison Jr. up front. And even if they don't get him, they can take Dallas Turner, who just probably looked like Lawrence Taylor at this combine. At the end of the first round, you got a choice of whatever big receivers there if you didn't get one, whatever offensive lineman is left, if Chop Robinson falls, and then you come back around in the 35th pick and you get Braden Fiske. I mean, it's like ridiculous when you think of the guys that they can get. And then, oh, by the way, I actually think they're starters at 66 and 71 and 90.
Sure.
With the right GM where you're not chasing a position of value like quarterback, and to me, I would much rather be them than anybody else because the Bears still have to make that tough decision we were talking about. They don't. And to me, that just means so much more.
Here's the kicker of all of that is that 4th overall pick might be the hottest commodity in the draft. They are going to get calls. I bet they've already gotten some calls from teams like my Vikings, from Atlanta, from Denver, or Las Vegas, depending on, I don't know, they've been saying some stuff about Aiden O'Connell, but I don't really buy it. They're going to get calls. They're going to be able to move down if they want to. Again, just like they did, let somebody else get their quarterback. We got our guy. They are definitely set up with a lot of assets, but we've seen a lot of teams have a lot of assets in the past. You got to hit on them. You got to hit on the picks. That's the stark and unsolvable reality is none of this matters if you whiff.
and you just said it. And the difference between the Bears and them is my belief in Monty Ossenfort. That's to me, that is critical. And then the fact that in the meat of the draft, where just like you don't have pressure. There's no pressure when you're picking at the end of the first round because somebody fell to you because nobody liked them. That's what happens to all of these good teams that get good enough to win. Oh, you want to let him fall down? Okay, fine. We'll just take him and instead of making him a starter, we won't put any pressure on him. So I think it's a very good conversation, and I thoroughly enjoyed doing it here today. I want y'all to remember now, check out Locked On Sports Today. It's the first ever 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Make sure you check that out, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts. Luke, man, it's been fun. We got to do it again. Soon. All right, we had a great time here. Make sure you tune in to Locked On NFL for all of your sports needs throughout the weekend. A lot of combine talk on Monday from all of the Locked On channels. Whatever team you like, make sure you check it out. Until next time, take care of each other, and we'll see you here on Locked On NFL.